Good morning and welcome to College Station, Texas. I'm on the beautiful campus of Texas A&M University. I just heard the train pass by and we're in the background of the beautiful Kyle Field Stadium. My name is Warren Chalklen. I'm a PhD student here at Texas A&M, completing my, doing curriculum and instruction with a focus on urban education. And I'm also an instructor in the multicultural class where we're really focusing on pre-service teachers and multiculturalism. Well, I'm here with my colleague Samuel. Welcome, Samuel. And we're going to be engaging in a couch conversation. We hope to invite you into our insight into multicultural education, both here in the United States and around the world. So welcome to you. Thank you for being here and howdy. Samuel, welcome. Thank you very much for being here. Samuel, let's get started. Can you tell our students a little bit about yourself and how you came to be?
Yes, thanks, Warren. Good morning, everyone. My name is Samuel Fenyane. I'm from South Africa. I work for the South African Democratic Teachers Union. It's the largest teachers union in the country, representing 260,000 teachers and education workers. SATU is a non-sexist, non-racist organization advocating for free public quality education for all. And it has done that. The record speaks for itself. We've done very well since the establishment of the union in 1990. And I'm also a doctoral student at the University of Johannesburg. The title of my study is Governing Universities in South Africa, the Role of Councils.
Great, thank you so much, Samuel. So, Samuel, one of the things that we talk about in multicultural education is why it's so important in schools, especially for teachers. And most of the students who I interact with are pre-service teachers. So why do you think they should care about multicultural education? Why does it matter?
Warren, the late former president of South Africa, Dr. Nelson Mandela, once said that, quote unquote, education is the most powerful weapon that you can use to change the world. Yeah. So in terms of education, in terms of why is it important for teachers, let me start with my organization, SATU. As I said, that we campaign for, advocate for public education, but not just free education, but free education in a sense that we ensure that learners have access to proper school facilities, teachers are properly trained, and then we have good environment. Now the teacher, who is our member, has the most unique opportunity to ensure that learners from different backgrounds. Now, background, it means so many things. It means religion, it means culture, it means race in South Africa. It means coming from different political affiliation. It means your sex as a person, whether you are male, female, gay, lesbian, or mixed gender. Means people with disabilities. But now you take the teacher and put the teacher in the center of that, in the classroom. That's where teaching and learning takes place. Now, why is multicultural important? It's important because the teacher, our member, must be able to reach to all the learners, must be able to connect them, must be able to say them, recognize that you have a race, you have a gender, you have culture, you have a political identity, you have all this, you have your socio-economic status, wherever you come from. But here we are in the classroom. All of us are human beings. We need to create a space that is conducive for all of us so that we can learn from each other, so that we can relate beyond all these barriers. Therefore, the teacher has that opportunity to do that. And if a teacher can do it, if a teacher can transform learners' lives through the curriculum, of course, through learning experiences, experiments, that for us, or for me, that has the opportunity, obviously, to expand to the school community. And at the end of the day, to the whole community, where the school finds itself, to the larger country and the continent and the rest of the world. So that's where then multicultural is so important. Because I will give an example. The reason we have these wars around the world today, the reason we have so many people fighting each other, is because people do not appreciate their differences. It's because people want their race to be seen as superior to others, their culture, their religion. and therefore they don't tolerate each other. So we believe as SADU that this must start direct in the classroom. And teachers must be capacitated, must be given the skills and the tools to ensure that they teach the learners tolerance, diversity, so that kids learn at an early age to tolerate each other. So for us, it's very important, and we take it very serious. That's why we've had lots of campaigns in the union to make sure that our women are female members are capacitated, our males also capacitated to understand diversity and appreciate each other's role in society. And that also translates in the classroom. And we've seen the positive results of that. So it's important.
Well, it's very important that you mentioned that, because part of our multicultural class is situating ourselves in the center of these concentric circles. You know, ourselves, our families, our schools, our classrooms, our communities, our countries, our continents, and the world. And so it's very important, and I'm very glad that you spoke about that, because I think you communicated it in a very different way, and that's very fundamental to the idea of multiculturalism, is an idea of connecting us. Now, Samuel, one of the readings that we've read, and we speak very often, and often I'll be engaged with colleagues who argue that children from low socioeconomic status cannot learn. And they offer a variety of different explanations for those occurrences, and they put this deficit perspective on students, whether it's racial deficit or class deficit or other deficits. You know, the argument is that these students have a deficit when it comes to learning, and therefore they cannot achieve academic success. What are your thoughts about that?
I think that is just an excuse. I mean, my honest view is that every learner has the ability to learn. Every learner has the ability to learn. That's why if you ask me, Samuel, what is education and how should the curriculum be structured, I will tell you that for me, curriculum must be structured in such a manner that it ensures that every child's potential is realized. Now we know that education has never been neutral around the world. And those in power always use it to advantage others and disadvantage others. We've seen they do it through many different means, through charging exorbitant fees, through segregating the schools, how teachers are taught, and also how assessment is made. But in my honest view, I believe that if you have an education system that is the same, that is free to all the learners, making sure that the teachers are properly trained and the resources are there. And then make sure that all the learners are getting an opportunity to learn. But then now we spoke about multicultural. And then this is where then the importance of curriculum comes in. And also the ability of the teacher to read, to put themselves in the shoes of the learners, in the minds of the learners, to say these learners, they come from different backgrounds. So therefore, they learn it differently. What strategies can I put in place, and what support structures can the education system put in place to ensure that these learners who have different learning abilities, their potential is realized? So that you don't say a learner cannot learn based on what?
Exactly.
Based on a test. You can't. I believe that you cannot simply say, because Samuel today didn't do well in this test, therefore he can't learn. The question is, what are you doing to take the best out of me? So that's what we want. We want an education system that will ensure that if I cannot do well in writing a test, as a teacher, what is that you can do to ensure that I demonstrate my understanding of the concept? Is there a way that I can do it? Maybe I can do it through a presentation. Because a test, for me, it depends on the mood or on the circumstances that the student finds themselves in today. It determines whether they do well or they don't do well. But that doesn't mean that the learners are not good. And therefore, we can't blame them. We need to find a way to take the best that is out of them.
So, Samuel, could you share with us a little bit more about your experience? We both grew up in South Africa, and it's one of the most amazing things to be blessed to be able to talk to a fellow South African about the beautiful thing which is education around the world, but also in our beautiful country of South Africa. But we grew up under apartheid at the same time, and I've shared with many of my colleagues and students what it was like being a white South African growing up in a post-apartheid South African world. But I would love for you to share your perspective and to give us some insight into what that experience was like.
Well, South Africa presents a unique case, which is very interesting. I personally, when I went to primary and secondary school, I went to school with people who speak the same language as me.
We have 11 languages, by the way.
Yes, we have 11 languages in the country. But I went to school with people who speak Spedi.
Okay.
My teachers spoke Spedi. In the community, we spoke Spedi. And almost in the Sekhukhune region where I come from, the main language is Spedi. So from the day I was born till matric, till my grade 12.
Senior year.
Yes. It was just same language, same culture, not exposed to a different culture or a different environment. So that I then learned in my own way. For instance, in the schools, I was taught English in Spedi. My teacher will, I'm telling you, my teacher will read something in English and then from there translate it to me into my own language so that I can understand, because one of the best ways for us to understand, for any child to understand, is when you teach them in their mother tongue.
Okay.
So there was no multicultural education in my basic education until I went to varsity.
Until you went to college?
Until I went to college.
Okay.
Yeah. And college then, wow, it was a different world. I did my undergraduate at Wits University, the University of the Witwatersrand, in Johannesburg, Gauteng province in South Africa.
In fact, that's where we first met.
Yes. Yes. Now, Wits present an interesting case as well. It's multicultural. It's an international institution. I met people of almost all races. For the first time in my life, I was taught by a white lecturer, by an Indian lecturer. For the first time in my life, I sat in the same lecture with a white student, white female student, and white Indian student, white colored student. For the first time in my life. And that took me a while to adjust, to transit from high school to university. You can imagine coming from a background where everything is done in your own language, and then you go to an institution now where the medium of instruction is English. Everything is done in English. And we have different races now. And to me, I still believe that the university didn't do well, didn't do justice to people like me in terms of putting in support structures to help us survive on campus, to mediate our own experience, to understand where we come from, and then make sure that they put in structures that will assist us to adjust to the university environment. To me, really, when I arrived at Wits, and I was doing my undergraduate, I felt like the university didn't care, really, about us. The university was actually the curriculum, the environment, everything was done to cater for the interest of white students. Because white students are used to all this. They're used to be taught in a PowerPoint presentation. I was not exposed to that. To go to the library and fetch books using a computer. I didn't know how to use a computer. The first time I put my finger on a computer was when I was at varsity. So everything in the institution was really done in such a manner that it benefited the white privileged student. So, of course, multicultural is important. I embrace that because throughout my life, I've always known that in South Africa we have different races, with different cultures, different religions. But I was not exposed to that till I went to university.
How old were you then, Samuel?
I was about 18 years old.
So 18 years old was the first time you were exposed to people of different racial groups? Eh?
That was in 2004.
In 2004,
yes.
Goodness gracious me. Yeah. So apartheid ended in 1994.
Yes.
So 10 years later was when you really first began to come into contact.
Yes.
Okay, goodness.
Yes. And that hasn't changed, unfortunately. And because our institutions of higher learning are not prepared for the type of students like me and my friends. That's why you have a huge dropout rate, mainly from black population. Because they're not that they're not prepared for higher education, but the environment is just something else that we're not used to. It's a jungle for us. So it's a serious challenge that needs our serious attention.
And how did you begin to navigate? Because you were successful in this environment. It was not catering for you, but nonetheless you were successful. You're now doing your doctoral studies. How did you use multiculturalism to begin to navigate those systems of power, those structures of power? I'm sure what you are sharing with us is very much how students of color in schools around the United States and around the world, in fact, or marginalized students, regardless of race or anything like that, whichever the marginalization category we choose to use, are operating and trying to navigate their environment. So we hear a lot about the students who are unable to navigate these environments. But you obviously an example of someone who was able to navigate that environment very successfully. So what were the kind of experiences that you went through in order to finally emerge?
Oh man, you know, they say poverty is the mother of invention, somehow. And do not underestimate minority or marginalized groups in society. Because those people, they learn to survive. Those people, they know that this environment is not conducive for me. But the question that they always ask themselves, or we ask ourselves is, what is it that I can do to survive in this jungle? And obviously one of the first barriers is language. You know, you come from this system where you speak in your own language, where you're comfortable, you can express, you can laugh, you can relate to people. Now you get into this environment where you speak a foreign language. English is not it's not even my second language, it's my third or fourth language.
How many languages do you speak, Sam?
I mean, I speak almost all South African languages.
11?
Yes. Then how did I survive? What I did was, okay, I'm here now. What do? I then realized that the best way to do is to get out of this comfort zone and use my social capital. Start learning to speak English properly, reading and writing, but also related to my white students and other people of other races. And then explain to them who I am, where I come from, but not in a paternalistic way, not in a shame, no, but to say the guys, this is me, this is where I come from, these are the language that I speak, this is what I know, and this is what I can offer. I can teach you my language, I can teach you my culture, can you teach me yours? And then that's where the friendship started developing. And then later on, and then I said, but I have a problem with my assignment, can you please help me? And then we started then sharing experiences. Can you please proofread my assignment?
So there was a sharing and a bond that you began to create.
Sharing in a bond, which was also at an equal level. It wasn't, okay, I'm a black student, white student, they know better than me, therefore I must reach to them. No, it was a system saying we are all students, we are all equal here, we have different experiences, but what is that we can do to enrich each other? I can tell you, I mean, the first almost 10 months of my study, that is my first year anyway of study, was hell. Even my second year was so difficult. And I started picking up in my second and third year and fourth year. And then everything, the environment now, I was getting used to now to Johannesburg, to the tall buildings, to the people, to the culture, to the environment, and I knew what was expected of me. Then I used the skills that I learned in the village. And you see, in the village, when you don't have something, you create it. If you can't create it, if somebody has it, your neighbor has it, you go and ask for help. So one of the strengths of the lessons that I learned in the village is that if you don't have salt, you're not ashamed to go to your neighbor and knock and say, I do not have salt, I do not have food. And in the village we have been taught this very important African principle of Ubuntu. of sharing.
Umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu.
Yes, mutu kumutu kamutu yomo.
Yeah, I am who I am because of other people.
True, that's what we learned. So, asking for help has never been an issue for me because that's what I learned when I was young. Till today, I'm not afraid to ask help. So that's how I survived in university. And I appreciate that what I don't have, but, well, what can I do? If my brother has it, let me ask.
Yes.
And my brother, remember, in this context, is a human being, anyone who's closer to me, beyond race, beyond religion, beyond culture.
And I think teachers play a large role in facilitating those things, facilitating those strengths, because I'm sure those strengths that you gained didn't come from nowhere. You know, part of them were inside of you, but they were nurtured by a teacher. So we're beginning to get to the concluding parts of our discussion today, Samuel. I would like for you to share what your vision is for South African education and perhaps education worldwide.
But maybe before we get there, I just want to check how your own institution promote multicultural education. Just to get a...
Oh, yes. Yes, exactly. You know, I've been so enthralled with your discussion, Samuel, so thank you so much. Goodness gracious me. I've learned so much. And I think that, you know, one must always remember that communities and countries are reflected in their schools. And just like any other place, Texas A&M represents, you know, a microcosm of the greater society that we find ourselves in, and the struggles and the issues of diversity that we're facing on the global level are mirrored here in Texas A&M University. But while some places around the world try to ignore or hide away from multiculturalism and preparing ourselves, you know, one of our visions here is to send Aggies, we call them Aggies, around the world to learn about different cultures and places around the world. And so that's one of the ways in which they're beginning to really expose our students. Now in the classroom, the class that we teach, multicultural education, my colleagues and I, we really are dealing with students who have a thirst and a drive to make an impact in the lives around them. And one of the things, many of our students come from small towns in Texas, or many of them come from environments in which they have not been exposed to diversity. So just like you, they're coming into an environment in which they haven't been necessarily exposed to difference in many ways. So our job is to connect with them and to not only provide them the theoretical knowledge, but to provide them with the compassion and the care that can lock with their drive to connect to people. One of the main principles of multicultural education, and Dr. Valerie Hill-Jackson is an amazing scholar in this regard, and various others. You know, you have James Banks and the like. They talk about starting where students are. And I think that just, you know, underpinning everything that you've said and underpinning everything that we do here at A&M is beginning where all people are and recognizing them as people. And so I think the challenges we're facing in South Africa are similar to the challenges we're facing in the United States. They may have different names and look different, but they all are more or less the same. But given all of that, let's get back to
Can I just add to that?
Yes, absolutely.
Just to say, remember in South Africa, since democracy, or maybe even prior to most of our teachers were taught during the apartheid regime, the majority of our teachers. So they were taught basically to teach their own people.
Yes.
If you speak Spedi, you were taught to teach Spedi-speaking learners. Now, post-apartheid South Africa, where we had one education system, a very inclusive education system, where now we started mixing people from different cultures, different races. The challenge was, how do then teachers implement this? How do they then make sure that they accommodate all the learners in the classroom? Well, our Department of Education nationally is still struggling to respond to that question. But one of the things that we did as a teachers' union was to train our members on inclusive education so that they appreciate diversity. They see that as a strength rather than as a weakness. And we're not just talking about South African students. Remember, we have migration. We have people coming into the country. We have we even have some people from Europe, learners from Europe, from Asia, from our neighboring countries, Zimbabwe, Nigeria, etc. So we had to train our members on how to accommodate these people, these learners into the classroom, and it's quite working well.
Yes. it's a challenge globally, but it's a challenge that we're all, as passionate educators, committed to. So Samuel, going back to that previous question, in conclusion, I'd like for you to just share your vision for South Africa, South African education. What for you, and to leave a message for the students watching this tape, what would you like to leave them with?
Well, there's a song, but I can't remember the singer. But I think the lyrics goes like, imagine a world where there was no religion, there was no country, there was no race, just human beings. So, can you imagine an education system that teaches young people to be who they are, to take the best out of them, without paying particular attention to where they come from, in terms of their gender, in terms of race and culture, but just the fact that they're human beings. As a teacher, being in the center of that, just take the best out of this. If you say that this young man is a king, help him, mentor him, shape him to be the greatest king that we've ever seen. But make sure that this young person embodies the values of tolerance, of patience, of inclusiveness, of respect, of reaching out, of standing out against injustice, and protect human rights around the world. So that's the education system that we want. An education system that can be accessible for free, without paying a cent, because now we see the rising of private schools where they corporatize, where they make sure that education becomes a commodity. We don't want that. We want our young people to appreciate each other, to access quality and public education. And to the rest of the world, let us do everything that we can in our own lives on a daily basis to teach our young people, our communities, our brothers and sisters, to practice inclusivity in everything that we do and be tolerant to everyone.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Sam. Ngiyabonga Buti.
No, sure.
Ngiyabonga,
Anytime, my brother.
Thank you so much for joining us, Samuel. You know, we are very blessed to have you here, and we hope that our students, I know that our students and colleagues who will be watching this will take much from you. Thank you so much, and we wish you the best.
Thanks for inviting us.
As we say, you know, I should have said this at the beginning, but as we say in Aguiland, howdy. So I'll say it at the end for you. Thank you very much.
Saying Amanda.
Amanda, wait. Thank you very much.
Sure.
This presentation has been a great insight into multicultural education in South Africa, and we hope that you've taken away some valuable insights, and we wish you a wonderful day. As we say in South Africa, hamagahle. Thank you very much.